Hello friends, my name is Kari, this is Tiger Lily Designs, and welcome to the Spooky Starburst Project Bag step-by-step instructional video. I am so excited to sew along with you guys and make this fabulous bag. Let's just look at it for a minute. This is so exciting. I'm so honored to be part of the Lindy Stitches Harvest Moon virtual hangout retreat this fall and to be able to teach you guys how to make this project bag. I love doing and teaching classes to you guys, and I'm so excited to take you through with this video step by step so that you can do this bag on your own, hopefully again and again and again. So let me just tell you how this video is going to work. Like I said, we're going to go step by step. We're going to open up your kit. So whether you got the kit or you have kitted it up yourself with your PDF instruction booklet, your handy dandy printout of the great pattern that looks like this. Hopefully you were able to print it out. You've got your project, your supply list right here, as well as there was a document with the email that gave you guys the step-by-step kind of links to all my favorites, whether it's zippers or chenillets or all the things. So what we're going to do right now before we get started is to just go through all the pieces of materials as well as equipment that you need to bring to the project bag process. Now remember, we are making this bag. I did bring a couple other samples with you guys. Now remember, there are going to be two different finishing options. Today, I'm going to go ahead and run through this one first, binding complete, but there is an alternative non-binding option. And so at the end of the video, there will be an alternative binding, non-binding option that will get you set up for that. I brought along some of a couple of the other ones. Hopefully you've seen them either on my floss tube videos or along the way, or maybe on Instagram, but here is a little Christmas bag. This is using a flamingo and toes fabric line that just came out this summer. So sweet. And then we had this fun spring one, which is florals. And for this one, I actually did an oval sennel just to kind of spice things up for you guys, as well as this is vintage stitching instead of a featured fabric. Same exact concept, right? And then last but not least, there'll probably be a couple more before the class, but as of today, when I'm shooting the video, this is the most recent one. This is my Rainbow Starburst using charm squares. So I will be filming and creating a separate like addendum because this one has received lots of love already, and I want to definitely be able to share with you guys how to make this. Obviously the construction of the bag is the same. It's just a matter of making the strips using charm squares and how to do it with a rainbow. So I definitely want to hook you guys up, and if that's your jam, I've got you. So without further ado, let's just go through the materials first. Okay, so I am just going to use the kit as a way to walk you through the materials. So as I mentioned, you open it up and the first thing you're going to see is your chart. So hopefully if you're doing the PDF, you either have it on an electronic device, if that's your preferred method, like an iPad or the like, or you've printed it out and have a hard copy printout just so you do. Now, if you are printing on your own, you will need to also make printed copies of this page. This is going to be, I think it's going to be page 7 in your PDF because it's an 8-page booklet if I remember from my printing. So it's page 7. The things you need to make it to account for when you're printing is you need to make sure that when you go to print that you uncheck the box that says scale to fit. For some reasons, even though there's white space all around, it will try to shrink it. It will trick the margins, and it will just be just a smidge smaller than it needs to. Now, that's not going to affect the functionality of your bag. All that's going to do is make your bag a smidgen smaller than the measurements in the box. But what I want to do, if you tell it to not scale for not adjust to fit the page and just print it as is, you should be good to go. A good rule of thumb for you to be able to so if you're in the kit, you received foundation paper piecing printouts of your 4 pages. We're going to be doing, it's a 4 quadrant assembly right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And so you received foundation paper piecing already printed out. But if you are printing out, just so you have a point of reference, the inside, the pink lines, I just want to make sure before I quote it. Yes. Okay. Your pink lines, which are going to be your cut lines, are 6 3/4. So when you print out your papers using your PDF, if for any reason, just double check to make sure that your printer is spitting out the correct size. Like I said, sometimes printers have the mind of their own and they scale when we don't want them to, and all the things. 6 3/4 is what you want this to be, both sides. It's a square, right? So you're going to print this out. If you're printing it out on your own, I had a link to foundation paper piecing paper. You can use official paper. You do not have to. You can definitely use just, the key is really thin paper. So foundation paper piecing paper is like newsprint thin copy paper. If you have super thin copy paper, that's great. The thicker it is, you're just going to want, and I'll talk about your stitching length later on, you're just going to want your stitching length as tight as possible so that when you're tearing away the foundation paper, it's easier if your paper is a little thicker. Some things to think about. As well as, obviously, in your kit, you got enough to make one bag. If you want to make more, hopefully you do. You can either just Xerox your, you're just going to take this to the copier and just, make a copy of your page 7 in your booklet. Okay, so that's... We haven't even gotten to the fun yet. So that is the pattern and the foundation paper piecing that should be in your book, and hopefully you've got yourself set up for a class with those materials. And then what else is in the kit? So here it is right here. So hopefully, like I said, you have kitted it up yourself, but we're just going to walk through this step by step, piece by piece. So what we've got on top is a zipper. So in my product length, I referenced you guys to my favorite zipper, Zip It zippers on Etsy. Everybody that I can link, I will link in the bottom of this video. But like I said, it's also linked on the blog post with the shopping list as well. It was in your PDF email. So hopefully you can find it in one of those 3 places. But either way, Zip It Zippers is an Etsy shop, and she keeps me in zippers. She is my favorite, and she has a long pull YKK. And what that is, you can just see, it's just a really nice long pull, hence the name, as well as it's a wide zipper tape. When you go to the big box stores and you buy a zipper, sometimes the tape's skinnier. Now you can totally do it if you are comfortable using those kinds of zippers and you have experience. Awesome. If you are new to the world of zippers, I highly, strongly recommend you grab yourself a Zip It zipper bundle of zippers. You get to pick your colors. You get to pick whatever you want. She is super great, and just get yourself set up for success, because this wide tape literally is my favorite. So you need a zipper. Now the length of the zipper that I gave you guys is, I believe, 16 inches. Sometimes they're 14. It doesn't need to be 14 minimum, because the width of the bag, 12.5, 13, right? So I like to have a tape that's a little longer, because I cut this metal tip off because, okay, so the other thing to take into consideration when you're talking about zippers, these are plastic teeth, right? If you're using a metal teeth zipper, you can't. You're going to run over your zipper teeth and break your machine, and then you're going to get mad at me. So do not do that. Use a plastic teeth zipper, and then we're going to end up, I like to use, like I said, this 16-inch is what came in your kits. It's what I suggested that you grab. Longer is always, you can always do longer, 16, 18, 20, 20. I think I linked a fat quarter shop zipper that was even longer. Longer is fine. You're just going to cut off the extra, and that's fine, because we're going to cover everything up. You just want to get this metal out of there so you don't accidentally run it over with your sewing machine. So we need a zipper, as well as we have some chenille. So this is a great product. I've linked it down below. We're going to talk more about it as we go, but hopefully you've secured yourself some chenille, and that is what we're going to use to create kind of, it's decorative as well as functional for this little poof center motif. And then we're going to have 3 piles of fabric. So the pile in the middle in the kit at least, is going to be your starburst pieces of fabric. So for this project, we need 16 pieces of starburst fabric. So the starburst pieces that you're going to get are 4 inches by 12 inches. Let me go ahead and tell you right now, we will have extra, meaning we will have scrap, little scrap triangles, little scrap trapezoids, I don't know, little funky shapes of scraps that I have made a couple crumb bag, knitting bag tutorials. So if you haven't seen that, I'll show you guys later, but that is super fun. I just wanted the size to be super easy for you guys. Again, my key is always to set you up for success. So what we're going to do is you need 4 by 12 inches. And so what was in your kit is going to be 8 different fabrics times 2. So that's 16 fabrics plus 2 more, meaning you actually have 18 fabrics in your kit. So what you're going to want to do is, and everybody's is part of the Hey Pumpkin line or whatever you're using, but I gave you guys an extra set, an extra pair of fabrics so you could choose your favorite. Choose the one you want to be your center motif. Once you have chosen, let's just go ahead while we're perusing. Do I have a black one yet? I don't. I think that one will be fun. All right, so I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to choose this set. Like I said, there's 2 of each fabric. So now I have 16, and then I have my center motif. So I'm going to pull that aside. All right, friends, and then we're going to have 3 more pieces of fabric in your kit. One of them is going to be your binding fabric. So it's going to be about 60 inches, I think is what I told you. So I use a 2 1/4 binding. So it's black and white stripe. Let me see how much I told you. Binding fabric, 60 inches. You have a little extra just because of the way the math works. But you have plenty of binding pieces. That's what's in your fabric, and that's what we're going to use for the binding. Whether you're doing binding, the exposed binding, and you feel confident with that, or even if you are doing the non-exposed binding, I am going to show you how we're going to use the binding on the insides to cover up those exposed seams when you close it up in this method. So I just wanted to let you know, we're going to use the binding either way. It's just if you don't feel confident in your pretty binding, we're going to put it on the inside for functionality only. Only you will see it, but we are going to make binding either way. And then last but not least, there's 2 more pieces. One is going to be the exterior cover. So this is the back cover, right? So the measure of this piece, let's just see. Let me just reference some of these things so I can talk to you as we go. What did I call this? This is the top back cover. Is going to be 14 inches wide by 20 inches long. Let me just stop right here and let you know all of these measurements are generous, meaning I gave you A, enough fabric, and B, enough measurements, so we're going to trim down to the exact measurement later on. If you've ever made a bag with me, you know I love to give you guys the opportunity to set yourself up for success and so that you can trim to the exact measurement so you're not like stuck. If anything happens during the process, no worries, we've got extra and we can trim it up and clean it up at the end. And that's the way I always do my kits, as well as the measurements in my patterns. Yes, there's going to be a ½ an inch of waste, maybe here or there, but I think that that's much better than being short. My rule is have it and not need it rather than need it and not have it. Know what I mean? Okay, so that is the exterior front cover. And that's whatever cover you want, whatever fabric you want. The key is with this one, don't use a directional fabric because it's going to be one way here and then it's going to flip over on itself over here. So even though, look, this isn't a directional fabric, it's a wonky-doo fabric. The pumpkins just go all over the place. So when you're choosing that fabric, make sure if you choose a directional fabric, we're going to have to take that into consideration. Maybe I'll add a little addendum at the end. So for example, with this one, with the rainbows here, and then I flip it up and then I want the rainbows. Otherwise, they would have been upside down. It takes a little bit. It's easier if you just choose a non-directional fabric. And that would be my suggestion to you if you're kitting this up yourself. And then last but not least is going to be your interior fabric. Everybody's interior fabric will be the same. If you've got the kit, it's this sweet little pink candy corns. So, so fun. I forget the measurements I told you guys. The interior fabric 14 by 32. So hopefully you were able to procure that for your kit. And then last but not least are your 2 pieces of foam. Your 1 piece of foam is going to be measured the same thing. It's going to be 14 by 32-ish. Like I said, we're going to be trimming it. So I gave you extra, so 14 by 32. This is the Pellon fusible double-sided foam. Pellon has lots of different foams. You could use the Buy Any Stable, you could use Sew-In. I just prefer the double-sided fusible, so that way when we're doing our quilting lines, we are set up. The fabric's not going to move while we're sewing it. And then you also have just a little tiny square 3x3, 4x4, and that's what you're going to use when we go and make our little center medallion motif poof, right? So that's what's in the kit. All right, so let me go ahead, clear off the table and set you guys up, turn you around and show you some of the equipment that hopefully you have. If not, you've got time to go and gather it, order it, whatever you need. Let's take a look. All right, friends, so I've turned you around and I've kind of set up all the equipment / materials that we are going to be using for today's project. The only thing that you don't see pictured right here on the table is going to be your sewing machine. So hopefully you've got your sewing machine, you feel confident in using it. Any home machine is going to get the job done. We'll talk about needles and making sure that the right needle is in your machine, but otherwise you should be good to go. And as well as an iron. You want to have a nice quality iron that you feel good with, as well as a pressing cloth to go with that iron. So those are the 2 pieces of equipment that are not pictured, but otherwise everything is here. We're going to run through the have to have, and then we'll have the it's nice to have type of categories. So first what we need is we're going to need a rotary cutter and your ruler of choice, as well as your cutting mat. You can see I've got all that set right up here. I love an Olfa rotary cutter. An Omni Grid 6" by 24 is just my go-to. It's the one that's always on the table. Any size will work. You just might have to make multiple cuts, as well as your cutting mat. You know, the project we're going to be making, we are going to be trimming at 12.5 by 30.5. So if you have a nice 24 by 36 cutting mat, you will be good to go. But if your cutting mat is smaller than that, no worries, you're just going to make multiple cuts. So then we're also going to need some pins. I like to use these Riley Blake glass pins because you can iron them. They're not going to melt. Otherwise, those little plastic, although they're pretty, you can't iron them. But these glass pin head ones, you can iron and they won't melt. Those are my favorite go-to quilting pins. So I've got those, as well as I've got my little container of Wonder Clips. These are my rider dies when I'm doing binding. So those are a great tool as well. You always need a pair of scissors, small, big, large, doesn't matter. We're just going to be trimming as we go. This is another rider die binding tool. It's a tulip pink tweezer, slanted tweezer. You'll see when we get to the binding why it's my favorite. And again, I will have this linked, but I use this every day when I'm making keepers, when I'm making anything with binding. That is always, it's just kind of, you'll see. I actually have it attached to my sewing machine. Last but not least is going to be your marker of choice. I use these Frixon heat disappearing pens, as well as, this is optional, but I do love this. This is an Omni Grip 2.5" by 18" ruler. And why I use a smaller one is that is what I use, and you can see, perfect. The lighting's working magically for us. You can see right here, see this? The quilting on a point on an angle, I make my one cut or my one line, and then I just use the ruler's edge to create my grid quilting. It's just really, really super simple. Now, if you don't have that, no problem. You can use any size ruler. You're just going to have to use the measurements. Maybe you want 1" quilting. Maybe you want 1/2 inch. It all just depends. This is going to be personal preference, but I just wanted to bring you and show you what I use. And last but not least, this is going to be optional. You can totally use a window pane, or if your lighting's good in your where you're sewing, no worries. But I love to have a light box when I'm using foundation paper piece. And you can see we're going to have this, and you can just see right through, and it's going to be super helpful trying to line up the fabric so we know exactly where we're going. But other than that, oh, last but not least, I almost forgot, is your needle. And this is what I just want to make sure. This is one of the most important pieces of this equation. Don't go into it assuming any old needle is going to work, because I can tell you it won't. It's not going to be as bad if you were with me during July and we did the Queen Take Center Stage bag. It's not going to be that detrimental, because at that point during that bag, we were sewing with 4 different layers of foam at one time. We are never sewing more than 2 on this bag, but just set yourself up for success. Get yourself a nice, strong, sturdy, I can handle sewing through 2 layers of foam, 2 layers of binding, some fabric, all the things. This is one of my favorites. I don't know if it's going to focus, but the key is you don't have to use this brand, but the size is what you're looking for, the 100/16. Sometimes they're called a jean needle if you just go and buy a big box store needle. But the 100/16 is going to give you a nice thick shaft that you can use and hopefully not break a needle while we're doing any of this project. So that is going to be all the components that you're going to need to get sewing. So hopefully we are all set. Oh my gosh, are you ready? Let's get started with step 1. All right, friends, let's get started with step 1. This is the Starburst Cover Foundation Paper Piecing. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making this 4-quadrant cover, and we're going to do it step by step. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab your 4 pieces of Starburst Spooky paper, and you're going to have to kind of twist them and turn them. And this is because I only wanted to give you 1 template rather than giving you 4, but hopefully it's not that hard. And you can see all I'm doing is I'm twisting the paper around, so I'm making my starburst shape. So it's just what we're going to sew. And like this one is the top right. This one's going to be bottom right. This one's going to be bottom left. And this one's going to be top left. Now notice, this is how we're laying it down. When we sew on the inverse, they're going to flip. But it doesn't really matter. I just didn't want you guys to get confused, and when we go to assemble it, you're like, this isn't on the right. The top right will be on the left, and the top left will be on the right, and they'll flip each other around. But for construction, this is what we want. So I've labeled them. The reason I labeled them is if you were using directional fabric, you want to take into consideration when we lay out the fabric which way the words go. Now you may not care. Maybe you don't care if there's words that are upside down or sideways or either way, and that's totally fine too. Then don't worry about it, just go rogue. If you want to be particular, which is how I'm going to do it, this is what step 1 is. We're going to lay out our 4 pieces of paper, label them TL, TR, BL, and BR. Now remember, this is the one I had chosen for my fussy cut center. So I'm going to go ahead and put that fabric aside. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 16 strips. And if you're using the kit, remember there's going to be 16 strips, 2 of each one. And what I like to do, let's just reference this one for a second. You can see this quadrant, checkerboard, candy corn, ghost, spider webs, is the same as this quadrant. I like to just, it kind of, it's symmetry is how I like to do it. I did move them. They're in different locations, but it's the same 4 fabrics in these quadrants diagonal each other. Make sense? So what we're going to do while we're setting it up is I'm going to go ahead and just lay this one there and put the other one here. And this is where you get to, it's a little personal preference, whether you're using the kit or you're using your own fabrics, you can totally just lay it out as you like. And there, obviously we're just playing right now. We're not committed to anything. We can totally switch it up later. Let's put the orange here. It's just, like I said, kind of symmetry, balancing it out. And see, there's candy corns on this one and this one. Like I said, everybody's is unique and different. Oh, maybe I want the pink here. Oh, no, I got an orange ghost. So we're going to have the orange ghost with this one. That's super fun. Perfect. Yay, I love it. Okay, so that's how that worked. So all I have done is kind of, like I said, laid them out four, and then the same four fabrics are going to be over here on the diagonal, and then the same and the same. And so I'm just going to go ahead and fold these up and keep them with their respective quadrants. And we're just going to start with the top right. And then we're going to go ahead and put the angle one, because then we'll go to this one next. Okay, so again, we're just going to sew this step by step together, friends. So I brought my light box over because I think it's going to be helpful on the video. Again, you probably don't need it. Step one, you're going to take your foundation, and so they're numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is if you want to go ahead and just visually lay out on the side. Okay, I want this, and this is prime example of why I want to know where the top is. Because if I laid it out like this, all my cute little ghosties would be upside down. So I want it like this, or like this, or that's upside down. So I think I'm going to have my ghosties be 4. So that's going to be 4. And then I'm going to have my candy corn be 2, the checkerboard be 1, and the little ghosties over here be 3. Perfect. Okay, so that's how I've laid it out kind of visually, so I can see 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 3, 1, 2, 4, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take away the 3, or put it aside, and take away the 4. And then we're going to put our 1 and 2 right on top of each other, line them up, and what we're going to do is lay them. It looks much better. Okay, good. I'm so glad it works. I was worried that you weren't going to be able to see, but the light box is exactly what I want. So you can see right here where I just put 1 and 2 on top of each other, right? And then I line them up. The printed side is what's up. And I'm going to line them up using that intersecting line between 1 and 2. And you just want to make sure, which is why I gave you extra fabric, that you can see. Let me find a little pointer. See, now we're going to be trimming at the pink lines, but we like to sew to the black lines just to make sure everything is secure, and we want all the fabric always to go outside the black lines. So you're going to see when we're lining this up, do you see this edge is well over this intersection line, and I follow it parallel, about a 1/4 inch seam. You can see this is about a 1/4 inch between the edge of the fabric and where I'm actually going to sew. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. I probably would have only put 1 pin in, but we're going to put in 3 just because this is our first time. We want to make sure we're all set. So we don't want anything to move. We want this to be about a 1/4 inch. What we're going to do is we're going to take this over to our sewing machine, and foundation paper piecing is sewing on the lines. So we're going to sew right on this intersection line between 1 and 2. And we're going to have creating a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so we're going to take that over to the sewing machine. What I do want to talk about right here is stitch length. So, you know, when your stitch length, my favorite ride or die on everything I usually sew for quilting is about a 2 to 2.5. For foundation paper, you're going to want a 1 to 1.5. You want tight, dense stitches so that when we tear away, it's easy. So let me take you over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew that first line. Okay, friends, so we're at the sewing machine, and like I said, we're just going to sew right along that first line, that one line between the 1 and the 2. And I've got my stitch length at 1.5. I've got my heavy duty needle in. Now you don't need your heavy duty needle in right now, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And you have just nice, tight stitches sewing right on that line. And yes, you're going to want to back stitch at the front and the back. Let's just go ahead and take these pins out right here. And you'll see, we're going to open it up. And there's our first intersection. So here we are over at the ironing station. I've got my wool pressing mat. I've got my Rowenta steam iron here. And it's just a matter of kind of just nicely cleaning up, pressing down that seam. You just want it to be nice and flat before we go and add the next piece. Easy. So nice and flat seams. It's just our 1/4 inch seam right there. So now we're going to take it over and we're going to add the next piece. All right, so we're back over here and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to remember this was 3, right? This is what we wanted for 3. So what we're going to do is on this flip side, so you can see with the light box, you can see what we're aiming for is we're going to be sewing right along this intersection between 1 and 3. Well, there's a lot of fabric there. So you have 2 choices. I'm going to do it one way and I'm going to do it the other way. And then you can decide which way works better for you. Way 1 is to cut away after, meaning I gave you enough fabric where, and with the light box or a window pane, you should be able to see no problem. So you can see right here what I have. This is my goal. This is my sew line. So what I want, you know, whenever you're sewing, it's right sides to right sides, right? So then we want it to open up like this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over and orientate, yeah. See this line? I can see it's parallel right here where there's about a 1/4 inch of this orange ghost on that side of the line. And then I'm going to follow this line straight across, and you can see right here, if I just put my pencil line, there's a 1/4 inch extra of the ghost fabric above the sew line, and that's it. What we're going to do is we're going to just pin 1, pin 2. You can pin 3 if you want, but I'm just going to pin 2, and I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine, and you can see, let's just look. Right sides to right sides. Step 1, you want to make sure that your right side is to right side. That's when you're sewing. And then when we open it up, just visually check before you sew. It's a lot harder to unseam rip when you have paper involved. So just, you know, visually check when I open it up. Is it what I want? Is the orientation the right way? Here's my top. That's fine. The ghosts are going to be sideways whichever way I go. So yes, that all makes sense. Obviously, my pins are what's keeping it from coming all the way, but that makes sense. Looks good. I'm a 1/4 inch above the line on the left and a 1/4 inch above the line on the right, approximately. Like I said, you have extra. If you end up running 3/8 or 1/2 inch, you should be good to go depending on the piece. Just shoot for a 1/4. It doesn't have to be exact. And we're just going to sew right along that line. All right, so now we're going to sew between number 1 and number 3. Start at the black edge. And sew. Go ahead and take my pins out. We're going to open it up, and I'm going to show you. That's it. So we're going to go and give that a good press, and then we're going to add quadrant 4. So again, we're just back over at the ironing station, just to give it a nice press, even flat press, easy peasy. We're gonna go ahead, I'll just scooch you over there. We're gonna go ahead and come over here and add number 4. So it's gonna be the exact same way we were doing it before, right sides to right sides. Remember, this is the one I chose because of the directional fabric. So the top is up here. This is what I want it to look like when I'm done. I visually look at it. This is the top, so I want flip it over like this. And then I'm going to take it over to my light box, line it up just like I did with the intersection of 1 and 3. I'm going to do the same thing with the intersection of 2 and 4. And you can see here is my line right here that I'm shooting for. The 1/4 inch is right here. I can already see the ghost fabric or the pink fabric is right there at a 1/4 inch. And my ghost fabric is right here at a 1/4 inch. I can see that. We are good to go. I'm going to go ahead and pin, give myself 2 good pins. And then I'm going to check, because again, I always like to, it's like measuring twice. Check to make sure, we'll go ahead and take the light box away. Check to make sure that that is what you want. And this is the top. There's my top marker. My ghosts aren't upside down. They're going to be going the right way. We are good to go. So now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew right on this 2 to 4 intersection line. That is what we've got. We're going to go ahead and open it up. We're going to take it over and give it a nice press, and then we're going to trim it into its 6 3/4 by 6 3/4 square, as well as trim up some of the extra. All right, so we gave piece 4 a good press. Now what we are ready to do is go ahead and give this a good trim. So we're going to trim it in 2 different ways. Step 1 is squaring it up. So we're going to go ahead and write on here, because we're going to cut off, although we can visually tell later, but just for your sanity, we're going to go ahead and just write on there top right, because we're going to go ahead and trim that off. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to trim right along those pink lines. So we're squaring up our block with the pink lines square. And it's just that easy. Just twist and turn and turn and twist. And there is, remember, that used to be our top, now it's our top left for the invert, remember? So now what we've got is we have a little bit of extra, see, because we were flipping away and we set this up to trim later. So I'm going to go ahead and pull off the fabric, or pull off the papers, just so it'll be easier to see the fabrics after. So what we're going to do is open it up, and you can see this extra piece. We're going to have an extra piece from piece 1 and piece 2. And you can see all I did was open it up, and there's my extra piece. And I'm going to line up, give myself a 1/4 inch seam, and just cut away some of that bulk. And we're going to do the same on this side. So open it up. There's our stitch line right there. I'm going to line up my ruler at a 1/4 inch seam right along that stitch line. Cut away the extra bulk. So now all of my seams are 1/4 inch seams, no extra bulk, and I've got my first quadrant ready to go. You can see I've got all these scraps. I always keep bigger ones that I'm going to go ahead and I'll make it into a crumb drawstring bag. It's one of my favorite knitting bags, as well as you could just make anything with a crumb string or a crumb panel. So I just like to collect all my scraps as I'm working and just put them in a pile out of the way. But then I can throw all of these from quadrant 1 away. Now it's time to do the opposite. Remember, this one is the opposite. They're diagonal across from each other on the project bag. Remember? So what I like to do is take special care and time and make sure that I'm not putting the fabrics in the exact same position. You totally can. You don't have to take this extra step, but I don't really think it's that extra. So we want to bottom, we want the top. This marks the top of the block. And so I don't want, well, I could put that there if I want it to be inverse. So I just have options. And so what I like to do is just totally get crazy. I put the ones that are on the outside on the inside. So it's the ghost and the ghost. And then, so of course they're both directional. So I got to take that into consideration. So this is the top. If I want ghost to be number 2, and I want this ghost to be number 1, line it up. So we're just gonna line it up again, just like we did on the first time, with the 1/4 inch seam right over top of the intersecting line of 1 and 2, making sure that we have extra on the left and the right. Go ahead and give it 3 pins, or at least 2, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then we're gonna check our work. This is the top. So let's flip it over. If this is the top of my block, open it up. My fabrics are directional, going the right way. No ghosts are upside down. That is fantastic. Now, if you do not have any directional fabric, that is fabulous. You get to skip this step, but we do. So we're just gonna take that extra time and care to make sure that everything isn't upside down. So we're gonna go. All right, so we're back from the sewing machine. I gave that a sew right on the 1 to 2 intersection line, took it to the pressing mat and pressed it open. Remember, let's just get everything in the right orientation. We've got our top marker ready to go at the top of the page. That is ready to go. So what we want to do, like I said, I'm going to show you the alternate trim method. So you can trim one way, which is you're going to trim it all at the end, which is actually my preferred method, but some people feel better with this way. It's kind of 2 different schools of thought when you're doing foundation paper piecing. And it honestly depends on the complexity of your block. Because this is only a 4-piece foundation paper piece block, none of them intersect, you can do it this way. But the way that you trim it as you go is kind of like the more traditional way of doing it. So I feel like I would be a disservice if I didn't teach you that method as well. So what we're going to do next is this 1 to 3. So the first thing we need to do is trim away the bulk. So you're going to find your intersection line. I kind of just created the fold. You can see close enough, right? We're just creating a margin. So we're in the same ballpark. I just created a fold on that line. So now what I'm going to do, make sure that gets out of the way, doesn't get accidentally caught in the trim, is take your ruler. Now you could have add a 1/4 inch ruler, or just any other ruler, and you add a 1/4 inch. So you can see I have a 1/4 inch between the edge of the ruler and the edge of the fold. And I'm just going to trim the extra away. So that is one way to trim. And so now what I'm going to do, so you can see, that's got me all set up. So then I don't really need the light box to know where to line up my next fabric. Let's see, which one do I want? Well, this was next to the ghost, so I'm going to put this one next to here. Perfect. So all I'm going to use, this is a 1/4 inch away from my sewing line. So it's easy. You can just line it up just like that. Flip it over. If you put it on the light box, you would see we're right at a 1/4 inch. You just want to triple check and make sure that you have extra on the left and extra on the right, and that everything is still a 1/4 inch or so above your sew line. Now with this one, you can actually do 2 at a time, or you can come back and forth, but we're going to go ahead and set us up. So we're going to do the same thing for the intersection of 2 and 4, right? So we're going to go ahead. It kind of skips a step to come back and forth and back and forth. So we created a fold line at the intersection of 2 and 4. And now what we're going to do is we're going to trim away that extra at the fold line. 1/4 inch away from the fold line, trim away our extra from our quadrant number 2. Now we've got this one pinned, and over there on the fly, after we sew this one, we can pin this one right to where it needs to go and sew that line as well. So that is just one way of not having to go back and forth 2 or 3 times. All right, so we're going to go ahead and sew at the intersection of the 1 and the 3. We can go ahead and give this a quick wooden roller press so we don't have to get up and go to the iron. And then do this one right at the, and we can see that it's right at the 1/4 inch. And we're going to sew right along that same line. And then we're going to go open it up, give it a good press, and a final trim. All right, so I'm just giving it a nice press. Remember, I did the wooden roller press while I was over at the sewing machine. That's one of my favorite quilting ruler tools notions, but that's real quick. And then we're going to take it over. We'll go right there and give it a square up trim. So we're going to, just like we did before, we're going to go ahead and on the inside just mark which way it goes. But again, once we've started and we did this symmetrically, you'll know which way to go and which way is up. But we're just going to go ahead and trim again right along the red, pink lines, the inner lines. If you don't have a color printer, there's an outer line and an inner thicker line. And again, we'll just throw all of our scraps up here in the scrap area to make with later. And again, this one's already all trimmed out because that one we trimmed as we went rather than doing a final trim on the inside. And again, all we're going to do is just tear away these paper lines, making sure you get all the paper from the middle. Open it up. And now we've got 2 of our 4 quadrants ready to go. So we're going to do the same thing with quadrant the other 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep you guys focused on here. I might flip flap either way, but we're just going to go ahead and I'll just set this to music while I go ahead and get these 2 quadrants done, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about what we're going to do. Okay, friends, so I went ahead and finished up doing those last 2 quadrants. So now we have 4 quadrants, and we're going to go ahead and get ready to assemble our bag. So you can see all we did was put those 4 foundation paper piece squares together, and we're just going to take them over to the sewing machine and sew them together to make one piece. So what I like to do is just lay it out, make sure that it all looks the way I want it to and all the things. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this one on top. I like to put a pin at the top just so I know this is the top, this is the side I sew on. And I'm going to do the same on this. I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and do a 1/4 inch seam along that edge and along this edge. Bring it back, give it a press, and open it up, and then sew the 4 together. Let's do it. Okay, so when I come over to the sewing machine, the first thing I want to do is make sure that I adjust my stitch length back to my desired stitch. We can come off the foundation 1.5. I like to bring mine to a 2.5, 2.25, whatever you feel good with, just your standard quilting stitch. And I'm going to just do a 1/4 inch seam on both edges of these square blocks. Now I could have put my 1/4 inch foot on, but I didn't. So you can if you want to. If you feel more comfortable with that, this will be a great time to change your feet. You don't have to. We're going to cover up any kind of wonkiness with that center motif in the middle. So now I'm going to go ahead and run over and give this a quick press right here, and then we're going to sew them together again. Okay, so here we are at the pressing station. This is the first time I'm going to give it a good press without paper. So I like to go ahead and just take this opportunity to utilize one of my favorite things, which is steam, and really just flatten that square out real good. Sorry, my iron's gonna grunt at us. It's one of those Rowenta Steam Pro refillable, so it grunts when it refills. But I like to just give this, since this is our first opportunity, like I said, I don't like to use steam when I have the foundation paper, but once the paper is gone, I love to give it a good firm press. So this is what I'm gonna do. And I'm going to go ahead and line up these center lines. That is the most important because you're going to be able to see that continue on. Let me grab my pins. I'm going to do, and what you want to do, if you can, you want to iron this seam one way and the bottom seam the other way. So they kind of sit inside each other, the seams, to kind of reduce your bulk. Ooh, that's hot. I put a lot of steam in that. And so then you're going to go ahead and just pin your 2 edges. And again, we're going to run a nice 1/4 inch seam right along this edge. All right, here we are back. Just go real slow at the middle. There's lots of bulk there, where all those fabrics come together at the point. All right, friends, now we're getting to the point where lots of things are going to happen real quick. Like, I feel like the hardest part was definitely making those quadrants and taking our time, laying out the fabrics, making sure everything was symmetric, and sewing on the points, being very precision and detailed like. And from now on, things are going to fly. So here we go. We're going to give everything a good press one more time. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our the rest of the front cover. So that is going to be this fabric. It's your 14 by 20, whatever fabric you're using is the one that is going to be the back of your cover, and then this tip top right up there. So that's the fabric you're going to use. Making sure when you look at your square, sometimes you'll have to reorient which was the top when you made it. And I know this skeleton was facing forward, facing up. So I know that this is the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that on top, And like I said, everything was given. You have a little bit of extra. You can see you have a little bit on this side and a little bit of that side, depending on your kit, and that's perfect. We will trim it away later, but you're just going to make sure your top is up at the top and your intersection seam is going to be at the bottom of your 4 square right sides to right sides. I like to center it on the line. Give it 2 pens, and then we're going to go and do a 1/4 inch seam right along this edge. All right, so we just did our 1/4 inch seam connecting the top 4 panel just to the rest of the exterior cover. We're going to go ahead and press that seam down. And as we're here, give the rest of our cover fabric a good press. Get any wrinkles out. Put that aside. And then we're going to get our interior fabric. And we're going to go ahead and press any wrinkles out of that one, or fold lines, or what have you. So we just want all, because we're almost to the point of being able to sandwich. Well, that's what's next. We're going to sandwich the interior to the exterior. So we just want to make sure all of the fold lines or wrinkles are out. So we're going to leave our interior fabric right side down, okay? Then you're going to go ahead and grab your Pellon foam, your foam interfacing, and you're going to line up one of your quarters. Like I said, everything's not exactly cut. You have extra. So what I like to do is I just like to line up about a 1/4 inch above and a 1/4 inch on the edge. I know that there's at least that much extra in the measurements given. And you can see it looks like my interfacing is even bigger than it needs to be. So what I'm going to do then is line up my cover, my quadrant in that corner. And you're just going to line it up straight. Smooth it all down. Make sure everything is covered. And you're going to grab your pressing cloth. So this is going to be key, friends. So you can see right here. Let's just talk about this sandwich just a little bit more. So we've got our exterior cover on top. Right side up, downside is to the fusible foam. We've got our foam, and then we've got our wrong side up, right side down. So we're making a little sandwich, a little project bag sandwich. But as you can see, there's exposed foam. You see where there's foam popping through the edges, and where that is exposed, where you see that foam, you have glue. This is fusible foam. So what you want to do is have a, like I said, a pressing cloth that to protect your iron. If you took your iron directly to this and touched any of the foam, you would get fusible glue on your iron, and nobody wants that. So what you're going to do is you're just going to use your pressing cloth and just slowly press to activate the foam fusing. And again, I'm going to go all the way over to the edge. I'm going to move my pressing cloth so as I don't get any of that foam glue on the left side. And you're just going to press and steam. Now this is going to depend on your iron. Like I said, I will link my iron below. If you have a really, really strong, you do not have to use steam. You can just use a nice heat activated press will activate the foam. Your activation time might be a little longer than what you see me doing. It all just depends on the heat, the degree, the wattage that your iron gets to, but eventually you'll get there, no worries. Just take your time, and you want to make sure you're just smoothing out the fabric as you're connecting it to the foam. But the good news is I will show you a trick once feel like I'm all fused together. I'm pressing as I go. I do love this iron. I love using a wool pressing mat as well. I just feel like it really creates a heat vortex. All right, so I take away my pressing cloth, and you can see everything is now one. All those three pieces have now become one. What happens if, oh, pickles, as you were doing it and you had your pressing cloth, so you're blind, and now you've got this, funky crease. The good news is while it's still hot, no worries. You can peel up your fabric, smooth it out again, and press it down again. It will still active as long as you do catch any wrinkles and pull back while everything is still hot. Again, making sure not to touch any of the edges of the foam. So you want to go ahead now. You can go ahead and give the press on the inside if you want to as well. If everything was laid down flat when you did your sandwich, you should be good to go. So now what we're going to do is the quilting lines, and I'm going to show you how I love to do my quilting lines and why I just think it makes the foam project bag pop. Okay, so this project bag has two different styles of quilting lines, and let me show them to you. As I mentioned, we've got the Starburst. So what this is just super fun foam, right? And the foam and the quilting lines, it just makes it like a three-dimensional texture. I love foam versus batting on my project bags, because then they're sturdy, right? And they can just hold their own. So what I like to do for my quilting, my top stitching for the front cover, is to come out on each ray. I'm going to come out. I don't have to mark that. I don't have to draw any lines. It's real easy. I'm just going to use the edge of my presser foot and do a 1/4 inch line to the left and a 1/4 inch line to the right of each starburst ray. Now you don't, as you can see, we're going to be putting later on, we're going to be adorning our little center motif little poof right here. And so you don't have to worry about quilting all the way up to the inside. Just start somewhere in the middle. It all just depends. You can see right here, these are about a 2.5 inch circle, I think. This one I did a much smaller circle because I used that little rainbow as my adornment. And then this one obviously was a lot bigger. And then this one's kind of like a happy medium. This is like a 3.5 inch circle. So it all just depends on what you are thinking for your center motif. We haven't done it yet, so I'm just going to err on the side of around this size. So we're going to go ahead and do our quilting lines there for that. But what I do is I mark the quilting lines for the back. You will see back here, I like to do a 2.5 inch on point diagonal quilting line. So what I do is I draw myself a guideline. Like I said, I've got my Frixon marker and heat pen, and then I'm going to use this first line as my anchor. So that is going to be a draw line. We're not going to stitch that line, but that is what I'm going to use to create my 45-degree on point. So you can see this ruler has a 45-degree angle line on it. I'm going to line it up along that steady line I just created. And then I'm going to draw my lines. And it looks like I'm almost out of ink on this one, but and then I'm just going to use the width, there we go, the width of my ruler to be my guidelines, which is why I love this 2.5 inch by 18 ruler. Creative Grids has one as well. And then you're going to just do the same on the flip. So you're just going to line up your 45 along the thing. You see the point where you intersected before, and you just draw your little sew lines. Now, some machines are going to have quilting guides, and if you want to use a quilting arm on your sewing machine, that's awesome. But if you don't have that, which the machine I'm using now does not, I just love to draw these easy breezy lines. It just makes it so easy to just, you know, stitch on the line, and then you get these perfect lines, and they're fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. Like I said, I'm going to change up my stitch length to 3.5. 3.5 is what I like to use for my top stitching on all my project bags. I'm probably going to start here at the below and stitch basically on all the lines we just drew, except for this one center one. That was just for my ruler marking, but all of these, I'm going to stitch on those lines. And then again, I'm going to stitch to the left and to the right of each of these starburst rays. All right, so I'm here. I've increased my stitch length to 3.5, and now, like I said, I'm just going to sew in the lines. All right, so as you can see, I have sewn all of the quilting lines both on the back and in the starburst here on the project bag. And so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab the binding and we're gonna prep it. We're just kind of prepping the binding right here just because we're here to do it. Go ahead and make your stitch length back to your normal everyday setting. Take it off your top quilting, 3.5, and then on the diagonal, create your binding fabric. And so I'm going to take that over to the iron and show you what to do. All right, so we're going to be doing a couple things over here at the iron while we're here. Let's go ahead and just prep our binding. So as you saw, I sewed our 2 binding pieces on the diagonal, 45 degree. It's just a nice way to do an intersection, so that way you reduce the bulk. And so to make binding, you're going to take your 2.5 or 2.25 strips, fold it in half, and just press them in half. And like I said, even if you're not putting the binding on the outside of your bag, if you are doing the option with the project bag, you're still going to use the binding on the inside to cover your exposed seams if you want to. If you don't mind exposed seams on the outside and that's not a look that you want to worry about, don't worry about it. So, but I did just want to go ahead and I'm going to show you guys both different methods. And so we need to prep the binding for either one. So we're just going to go ahead and prep the binding. We're just doing it because we're here at the iron anyway. And so now the binding is folded in half and ready to go for later. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to create our center motif. Now, if you remember from the beginning, we kept this fabric aside as what I wanted to use for my fun little center motif pattern. And so I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this away. I don't want to worry about that. So I like this little fun pumpkin. Well, you get to pick what you like. What do I like? Oh, pickles. I think I want the orange pumpkin. So I want this orange pumpkin right here in the middle. He's got like a whole world around him. Oh, this one's a better center. So we're going to go ahead and just give that a good press on the foam. So I cut my foam down to size just a little bit. Now remember, so that's probably going to stick to my mat, but it didn't. So we're good. Now, of course, I picked one where my dark marker isn't going to be very helpful. But if I had chosen a different one, then I would just go ahead and grab, this is where you get to choose what you want. And so we're going to go ahead and do it on the back side because I can't even begin to see. So you're going to just use whatever you're going to use to trace your circle, the glass, a little lid, whatever, peanut butter jar, jelly jar, a little tiny bowl, like I said, a drinking glass, whatever. Just obviously start bigger than you want, and then you can trim down. That's kind of fun with the little swirls all around it. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I gave you enough chenille. That's adorable. Let's see. I think I gave you enough chenille for a 3.5-inch circle. This might be a little more than 3.5. Let's just, before we commit to it, we got to make sure that our little piece of chenille will go around the whole thing. Like I said, I think I gave you enough for a 3.5-inch circle, give or take. And I am spot on. That's about as big as you can go, but I love it. Okay, so that is what I'm gonna do. Let me just get him centered. How fun is that? That just worked out magically. All right, let's go ahead and I wanna see it upside right. Perfect, I'm gonna place him. And remember, this is the fusible foam. So I'm just gonna let the foam do the work. Get my pumpkin in the middle. And just activate it just a little bit. All right, and so that it's not sticking completely. We're gonna go ahead and sew it down. So we're gonna take this over to the sewing machine and tack it down. And while we're over there, I'm gonna show you how we sew the chenille on. Okay, so we're over here at the sewing machine. I like to sew my chenille on with a nice tight stitch, just because you're going around in a circle and you want stitches down more frequently. So like I said, we've got our foam center motif kind of stuck on there, holding to, and then we're just gonna go around. I'm gonna go ahead and set my needle in. And what I like to do is roll up this so that I can manipulate it around the edge. And so the first thing you're gonna do is sew your little poof down first. And of course, I shouldn't have just let go of that, but. And you go around once, and then you take a look and see, did I miss any corners? Did I miss any areas that aren't tacked down? And actually, I didn't. That's pretty amazing, actually. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my chenille. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sewing right down the center of this. And this chenille stuff is like, it's amazing. It's like one of those washcloths that used to grow in the bath. It's crazy. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna kind of go slow and steady around in the circle. In trying to make your sewing lines in the middle of the chenille, and your chenille middle is kind of going right at that intersection between your motif and the starbursts. You don't have to be super perfect, because the great thing is once we activate the chenille, the little funny chenille feathers and fingers and fun will kind of cover up and be really forgiving as we go around in the circle. So just slow and turn, slow and turn. Trying to stay as close to the center, because where your stitch lines are, your chenille fingers are going to go to the left and the right of that. And so you can just overlap your piece right on top of each other. And that's what we've got. And I'm going to take you over and show you how to activate the fun. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to activate the chenille, and all we're going to do is take a spray bottle, spray it, and then you can use your fingers or you can use the edge of your tweezers. Don't use the pointy part because you don't want to rip it, but you could use the edge, and you just kind of fray it. And then you're going to kind of manipulate it and tell it which way to go. And it's going to look a little funny when it's wet, but when it dries, it's going to get that fun chenille effect, which is just super fun. And it totally hides where you attached your center motif, poof. Your stitching lines don't have to be perfect, and then it's just a fun little added decorative finish. So like I said, I just like to take my time and make sure that my chenille, see all these little fingers and threads, how they're going in the right direction that I want them to, because when they dry, they're going to dry whichever way you left them. So take your time, and if you can always re-wet it if you don't like the way it dried. But that's it. That's how you activate the chenille. It's so fun. Such a great trick. And it's really great for quilts. This was made for quilting. And so it gives you that fun little like raw edge finish. You throw it in the washing machine and that does that magic for you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim up the bag, add the zipper, add the binding, and we're done. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh. Okay, so my step one on trimming is just at the top. Your top edge was straight when you assembled it, so that we're going to use that as our first straight edge. And so what you're going to do is you're going to line this up. Like I said, I'm going to cut this one first. That is going to be my straight edge to anchor all my future measurements on. And so what I'm going to do now is just trim the bag. Now the measurements in the pattern say 12.5 by 30.5. 12.5 by 30.5 is a great starting point. It's a great guideline. That's what it should be. I hate to use the word should because every bag is going to be totally unique and special. And don't get stressed out if yours is 20 or is 12 instead of 12.5, or don't get stressed out if yours is 13. That's okay. Make it yours. That's what's great. And so I just use that, like I said, I use that edge to create my first straight line at the top. And then I'm going to line this up with a straight edge on my ruler, my cutting mat. And I'm going to do another straight line. So that way, like I said, you're shooting for 12.5. It looks like mine could be real close to it, but again, it doesn't have to be. There's no rhyme or reason, but 12.5-ish. And then what we're going to do, you can see right here, I didn't iron my drawing lines, my sewing lines. All right, took those and gave them a quick press out. And then the 30.5 is where you want to shoot for. That one, you should be pretty close. And let's see. You're going to want to trim at 30.5. So that way when we fold it together, it makes sense. So like I said, you should have a little extra. Looks like I have about an inch and a half on between fabric and foam, but 30.5. And now what we're going to do is go attach the zipper, but I'm going to show you here how we're going to do it first, just because it's a better view from here. So We are almost done. So the bag, let's just, visually understand how we're going to put it together so that maybe it makes sense as we're putting it together. So you can see I just folded, right? So we've trimmed it. It's 12.5 by 30.5. You're going to fold it in half, or you're going to fold it right on that line where the starburst meets the back. And then this is going to fold down like this. Your zipper is going to go here, and we're going to add some binding. Again, we're going to do the binding option first, and then after that, I will have a different bag showing you guys the non-binding option method. But so this is how we're going to do the binding method first. So I just wanted you to visualize how it's going to come together. So step one is to take your zipper. I like my zippers to open from left to right. If you're left-handed, you could totally, this is a way where you can make it custom and have it open from right to left if you wanted to, but left to right is standard, and you're gonna go ahead and have it, teeth up. Long pull, this is why I get extra, so I have extra tape on the top and the bottom. I don't have to worry at all about manipulating around the pull. That is my favorite. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and flip it over again. And what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to line up the clips. I'm going to show it, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to show you what I've done. So you can see I'm clipping the cover to the zipper tape, remember? So we had it right side down. So the zipper, the pretty side, the exposed side is down. And then we flipped it over. Oops, sorry to shake the camera. And now we are clipping it. So you can see I am clipping it. It's about 3/8 of an inch overhang. See the tape right here? You can see, hopefully I'm going to be able to zoom in. Well, I know I can. I'm going to zoom in right here and show you guys that you can see the tape is 3/8 above the cover, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew as close as, I don't put on a zipper foot. So I use my regular presser foot, and it gets me about 3/8 of an inch away from these teeth is what it's going to give me. And I'm going to basically sew right along this line. Let me just go ahead and it's going to be right there. It's a scant quarter. It's not a full quarter. It's enough to grab the tape, plenty of tape, and then grab the cover. And then I'm going to show you how we do it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch length back up to the 2.5. And like I said, I'm just going to sew right along that edge. I'm going to connect the zipper to the cover. And it's going to leave extra tape because we're going to use that extra tape. So here we go. I'll leave it right here. So hopefully I can zoom in and show you right here. See the extra tape? Because we're going to use that extra tape to cover the exposed seam. So what I do now, stitch it back to 3.5. Go up to the front side, press it open so that when you're sewing, you're 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, from that seam you just sewed, you're actually going to be grabbing the zipper tape on the back side. So let me show you. So you can see right here, now the exposed raw edge of that cover that, looks like that, is all hidden now under the wide zipper tape. And so that is one of the reasons why you have to have a wide zipper tape. It gives you nice finished seams. So then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it on itself again and do what we just did. Just clip about 3/8 of an inch away from the edge of the cover. Make sure your edges line up so your bag is square and you are good to go. Change it back to your 2.5. again, attach your zipper. You're going to go ahead and open it up. This one's a little trickier because you're fiddling with the other one, but you do the exact same. You fold it over. You make sure that when you're top stitching 1/8 away from the edge, that you're actually grabbing the wide zipper tape. You kind of use your thumb to fold it up under. And you can go and you can see again that the zipper tape now hides all the exposed seams. So you're going to go ahead and flip your bag inside out. Kind of arrange it the way you want it. So it should just fold on its own naturally at these seams where the intersection, and then you fold. And they're going to go ahead and just stop top stitch on the left and the right edge. Now making sure once you get to the top that you open up your zipper, holding the zipper teeth in place. But now it is good to go, and we're going to go ahead and trim these edges off and then add. Okay, so we have cut off the extra tails, and now we're going to add our binding. So I've got our binding tape, and what you do is we're going to do a machine binding. We're going to attach it on the back side first and then top stitch it down on the front side second. So what I like to do is I put on my 1/4 inch edge foot. You can see right here it's got a 1/4 inch edge, and it just allows me to, it's like a rail system. It just makes it super easy. Let me make sure. You want your stitch length to be 2.5 or less, whatever your preferred regular. Now this is where you're going to need to go slow and use make sure you have the right needle in, because we're going to be going through 2 layers of foam. So you're going to start in the corner, and so you can see I've got this tail. This is my end tail, and I'm about 2 inches away from the corner. I'm going to put my foot in. I'm a 1/4 inch edge away from the edge tape. The tape I have my folded edge is what is lined up parallel with the edge of the bag, and I'm going to anchor my thread, come down, stop about a 1/4 inch away from this edge, and then we're going to do this origami binding folding method. So let's do that. So let's just slow. We're just going to go slow, and I'm going to do every corner with you slow. So hopefully by the time we get to the 4th corner, it's going to be like easy peasy. So you can see I stopped. When you stop, you want to make sure you stop with your needle down, and you're going to come angle at a 45-degree angle and come off. So let me go ahead and I'm going to zoom in and show you guys right here what that looks like. I came down, I stopped, needle down, 45-degree angle off. That's it. And now we're going to do the binding origami. So meaning we're going to fold up like this. It's another 45-degree angle. Do you see? Okay. That's fold 1 and then fold 2. We just wanted, the fabric was going this way and we want to make it go this way, right? So we fold it once on a 45-degree and then we fold it back on itself, turn the bag around, and we're going to stick our needle down right in this corner. This corner is going to be a 1/4 inch away from the top and a 1/4 inch away from the side, right in that magic corner. And then we're just going to slowly line up. You could wonder clip if you want. I just like to go slow and line it up as I go. And then just go extra slow when you get to the corner. Again, one more stitch, I think. Yep. And then 45-degree angle off. 45 fold this way. And then back on itself and turn. And again, we're going to anchor our needle right, imagine there's a little square right here. 1/4 inch down and 1/4 inch away. We're at a square away from the corner. Needle down and just slowly lining up. Again, this is the folded edge of the binding with the edge of your bag. 1/4 inch away. All right, we've done 3 out of 4, so now we're going to fold over, fold 1, and fold 2, and turn. Oh no, that was 3. This is 3. Now we're 3 corners done. Making sure that when you're sewing that you've opened the zipper wide enough where you're not going to run over the pull tab, because I've done that before and breaks the needle, breaks the pull tab. The bags just don't do that. Would be my recommendation. And then origami fold one more time, and here we are at the bottom, right? So we need to be able to intersect these together. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our little corner stop, but just for a little bit, just enough to tack it down, about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. And so now I've got these 2 tails. I got to turn these 2 tails into 1. So this isn't the less bulk method. This is just the easy method. It's the one I like to teach my beginners. So we're going to go with it. If you know how to do the more advanced binding method connection, awesome, do it. But like I said, this is just my easy, beginner friendly way to do it. So I've got 2 tails, right? And so I'm going to take my right sides and I'm going to open them up. Right sides to right sides, open up. And I'm going to intersect them together. Right where they meet. Right? Right at that point. See where they met right here? And then I'm going to draw a little line and draw a little line. Right where they 2 meet. Face to face, front to front, open pieces. Now it gets a little tricky. You do have to fold it on itself. You can put a pin in. You put the marker in so you should be able to see, but just to hold it in place. And now what you're going to do, and if you could, you would see it if my marker was not black, but right here is my draw line on one side and it intersects with my draw line on the other side. So all I'm going to do is sew right where we intersected them. I'm going to grab my, whoa, sorry about that. Okay, then we're going to cut off the extra. And now our 2 tails become 1. And we're going to go ahead and finish. Oh, my needle came unthreaded. But we're going to go ahead and finish sewing around the exterior of the binding. Step 1, and then we're going to top stitch, and then you have it back. Okay. I must be out of bobbin. Yes. All right. Okay, one more time. And thread the needle. All right. And we're just going to sew, sew, sew. All right, so now we have attached the binding on the back. And so what we need to do is top stitch it down on the front. And this is where you can wonder clip for days. So I'm going to show you how to do the wonder clips. And this is where if you want to go ahead and take some time and trim any threads. But you see what we're going to do is we're just going to wonder clip the binding over the edge. How many did I bring over? Let's see. Okay, so what I like to do, like I said, I put my 1/4 inch foot on to attach the one side of the binding, but then I like to use just my general foot so that I can see exactly where the stitches are going, because that is what the top stitching is about. It's not about it being a 1/4 inch away. It's about seeing where you're going. You are going to have a guideline, and I'm going to show you. I like to use a 3.5 top stitch on my binding. I like to start at the bottom. This is where I'm going to use my tool. And what we're going to do is we're just going to needle down right here on the edge. All right, I just want to make sure that when I go to edit this, I can zoom in and show you guys this, because this is where the binding dislike, I think, comes in. But it's not that bad, friends. Okay, so you can see right here. Let me just show you. See this? Can you see this stitch? If I'd use a different color thread, maybe on my next one I will. But you can see right here, this is where we just stitched the binding back on the back side. This stitch looks right here. And so we want our binding to just cover that stitch. So that way, when we are 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the binding, our stitches are going to be inside 1/8 of an inch as well. In theory, that's what we want. But again, binding takes practice. Binding top stitching takes even more practice. So give yourself some grace if your top stitching isn't perfect. It is a learned. You get better with every one you do. And you just go around and you grab, and that is why I love these tweezers. I just use it to hold the binding in place just to the left of those stitch lines. And when you get to this part right here, you're doing another origami fold. So you fold it down, you create the 45-degree triangle, you pull it up, and then you've got your mitered corner. Fold it down, you can see the angle right here, and then fold it up, and you've got your mitered corner again. Again, if you were a quilter and you do binding, you can attach your binding your favorite way. Maybe you like to hand sew it on. I find it kind of fiddly with the foam bag. But of course, you can always do the method that I'm going to teach you next. That is going to be an addendum to the end of this video of the no binding method. So let me just get this stuff out of the way. And then you're just going to round the corner, do one more corner, and you're going to come back to where you start. You're going to have a little bulk at that seam where you turned those 2 binding tails into 1. Just go a little slow. And there she is. And you can see your top stitching right along the edge. Oops, sorry, my son. Around the edge, and she is done. There you have it, friends. This is the Spooky Starburst Project Bag step-by-step tutorial. I hope you have completed it and it was fun and you had so much fun at making either your spooky bag or whatever fabric you decided to put it together. So I hope that this helps you step by step. You get to keep this video forever. Just keep the link in your email box, put it someplace safe, bookmark it, whatever you want, so that you can access this exclusive class only video until way late into 2026 when I'm going to share it again with everybody else. So right now it is just for you guys. So this is the binding option. So what I will be adding at the end of this, so remember, so what we're going to be doing is on the day of harvest moon, we're going to come together, and what we're going to do is we're going to watch this tutorial together, but it's going to be on like a dual screen situation, meaning I'm going to be able to like be a bubble in the corner that floats around live during class time, Saturday, September 20th at 1 p.m. We're going to come together and sew the bag. So you do not have to sew the bag prior to class if you don't want to. You totally can. You could totally get to a point, maybe you get stuck, and then have your questions. Maybe you just watch it once to kind of get a feel for what's going to happen, but then you sew with us on the day of the class. But what we're going to be doing, like I said, is we're going to be watching a dual screen. We're going to have the class, this video running, but I can pause it. I'm going to pause the video. If questions come up in the chat, I will be able to see the questions, pause the video, be able to address and answer all the questions. I'll have my sewing machine here. I will be able to answer any questions live as we go through it step by step. But I wanted to be able to give you this step-by-step tutorial so you can hopefully make tons and tons of bags in the future, not just this one. And I wanted it to be a way for you guys to be able to have access to this video tutorial after the 30-day expiration date of the normal virtual event classes. I know with Lindy Stitches, her virtual event, her classes, her online videos access is accessible for 30 days after the event. So if you aren't able to attend the event live, no worries. You have 30 days to access that live Q&A class. But after that, it is gone. And so instead, I wanted to be able to give you guys this video tutorial, A, in advance, and B, forever. So hopefully that's something exciting for you. And that's what I've got for you guys. So until next time, I will see you at the Harvest Moon Hangout, and hopefully you will have lots of bags. If you do make your bag prior to the class, I would love for you to share it on social media. Tag me, tag your friends, get everybody excited. Maybe come back to the class and make a different one. These will be great for Stitchy Friends gifts, table make gifts, all the things. So I am going to go ahead. Like I said, there will be an addendum to this video showing you guys how to do this exact bag, but without binding. I'll probably have a different fabric just because it's fun to make a different one to share with you, as well as I will be putting together prior to the class, maybe not in this one, but it will be a video I share with you on how you do the rainbow option using charm squares. I feel like this is already super popular, and I definitely want to be able to share with you. This one's easy. It's just a couple more steps, a couple different tweaks, but otherwise it is the exact same way, just a little bit different how we get our pieces in the Starburst rainbow fashion. So until next time, friends, I would love for you to join the Tiger Lily family, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or Patreon. I've got lots of upcoming bag tutorials coming. I have a Christmas one that is going to be launching maybe right before the Harvest Moon or right after, but I will hope for you to come and join me with that, as well as a Churn Dash quilt along in October. Lots of fun always happening here in the Tiger Lily studio. So until next time, friends, happy stitching. Okay, friends, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the alternate finishing, so the non-binding finishing. So this is another bag that I have sewn to completion. I just installed the zipper just like we did the other way. And now before we close it up, we're going to go ahead and do the non-binding method. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to turn the bag inside out. And gonna go ahead and zip it up inside out, but leave yourself an opening because we're gonna have to use that for opening. So you're gonna have to kind of eyeball on the inside, find the fold where the front cover meets the back cover. It's going to be right where your stitching changes. So you can see my starburst stitching here, and you can see my crosshatch quilting stitching there. So right at that intersection, that's where the seam, where those two intersect. And we're going to go ahead and clip this down to just train it to go that way. And then the same thing up at the front. We're doing what we did with the binding method, but without the binding. So we're going to go ahead and clip it closed, and we're going to go ahead and with a stitch length just your standard stitch length, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and close these seams up. Just sew along the edges for both sides. And we're going to do it for this side. Again, making sure that that zipper is open because otherwise we won't be able to get in the bag. So when you get over the zipper, make sure you're holding your tape together so that the teeth are going to be close together during the assembly. That's just going to be like a scant 1/4 of an inch because what we're going to do now, so you can see all these raw edges, right? And that's what we want to get rid of. So we're going to go ahead, I don't have the right scissors, but we'll just use these. Clip away. No, we will not. We're going to just clip away the zipper tape on both sides. And now we're going to take the binding that we made and install it on both sides on the inside. And that's going to cover up these raw seams. We're going to take our binding tape and we're going to open it up and just finger press at the top just to enclose those raw seams. So we have a nice finished edge at the top. Fold it back on itself. And we're going to do one side and binding, installing it just like we did before. It's open side to the raw edges of the bag. And again, I like to use my 1/4 inch foot. And when I get down to the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to cut off the edge. And the reason we don't pre-cut these is just in case your bag doesn't measure perfectly, you can custom cut it to what you need. So you cut it a little bit, about a 1/2 inch. Inch was a little excessive, but that's okay, gets it done. Fold it on itself so that we have a nice non-raw edge on the inside of the binding. And go ahead and do it on both sides of the bag. So again, we're just going to finger press. Close it up. Start at the bottom. And go ahead and custom cut my full size. Finger press again. Finish stitching that up, and then I'm going to go ahead and change my foot back to my everyday foot. Take away my 1/4 inch foot because I like to use this one for my top stitching. And again, you do not have to line the inside of your bag. You do not have to do this extra binding step. All it is it closes it off. It finishes off the inside of your bag, leaving no exposed seams on the inside, no raw edges. Your bag looks finished and professional and all of those things. So you can see all we're going to do is wrap. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a 3.5 top stitch. That is my preferred binding top stitch. And again, just like we were doing on the binding on the outside, we just want to wrap it just enough to cover those stitching lines we just made on the inside of those lines so that our top stitching is 1/8 of an inch from the edge on this side and 1/8 of an inch on the other side. But again, this is all on the inside of your bag. So if you don't feel like this is a great way to practice your binding and know that your seams are on the inside and the only person that is going to see / critique is you. And then we're going to go ahead and do it on this side as well. Real quick, got all these stragglies. Need to cut away these threads. If you have a serger, maybe you're a garment sewer, you could also just finish these edges off with a quick run down the serger. If that is something that is in your sewing room, rather than doing this interior binding, there's plenty of options. But like I said, this is just extra and a great way to practice your binding until you feel, and maybe you don't like the look of binding on the outside of a bag. That's totally an option as well. It's definitely personal preference. So now we've got the bag, and you're just going to turn it inside out on itself and push out these corners. You know, your quarters are going to be round. You won't be able to, because you can't cut them, right? So they're going to have a little bit of bulk. So they're not going to be perfectly square corners. But that's just the nature of how it is assembled. But you can push out as much as you can, and it should be a nice, pretty round corner. It won't be a... And then you're going to go ahead and give it, close it up, go give it a press to just kind of tell it which way you want it to go. And then she's all done.